Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel, and we're moving on with the next defence witness, and trust me, I know this trial's gone on forever but I'm nearly at the end now. So the next witness is Dominic Casey. He's a private investigator and a security officer, and he has been licensed to do so since March 2008 in the state of Florida. On the 1st of October 2008, he was employed by George and Cindy Anthony. Prior to that, he had been employed with the Byers law firm. When he started working for George and Cindy, he was following up on tips from the tip line and doing their security and investigations. With regards to his security duties, he says there was protesters outside the house throughout the afternoon until late at night and sometimes the early hours. This started around the first week of September and they were there until around the end of October. So due to the protesters, at the end of his day, he would park his car on Suburban Drive, and he would do this to make sure none of the protesters would go back after he thought they'd all gone. He didn't do this every night, but most nights. When he would be parked there at night, he would see other people in the area. Most nights he would see a police car and one or two media vehicles. They would be parked near the school at the end of Suburban Drive. And this picture shows where Dominic would park, and his vehicle would be obviously facing Hope Spring Drive, so he could see if anybody was heading towards the Anthony's house. At the end of October 2008, he helped Cindy send a teddy bear to someone called Luke Phillips. He got the address and gave the address to Cindy and asked her to send something of Kaylee's to Luke. Cindy agreed and forwarded a teddy bear, and he knows it was a teddy bear because Cindy told him. So not long after, he received a package back at his office addressed to Cindy, so he arranged to meet her. He called her and said the teddy had arrived back, even though the box was sealed. He said that's what it was. He says Cindy opened the box in front of him and he could see a teddy in there. So Luke Phillips is a person that contacted the family in July 2008 and offered them help. Luke represented some people that were psychics. Dominic says Luke wasn't the psychic. He kind of got them work. So we go back to the 15th of November 2008 was when they did the first search on Suburban Drive with James Hoover. And he points out that James did not work for his agency. So in the video we saw, in James's testimony, you could see Dominic on the phone. He was actually talking to a woman called Jeanette Lucas, who was a psychic. He had received a phone call from her that morning, and as a result of that call, he went to search in the area on Suburban Drive, and obviously they were going there to try and find Kaylee's remains. Dominic says the reason why James, if you remember from James's testimony, the video, James is filming from inside the car, and this is because when Dominic got out, he didn't want James with him while he was on the phone because he didn't want him to overhear the phone call. So as Dominic told Jeanette, he would call her when he got to Suburban Drive. So he'd waited till he got there, told James to wait in the car, got out and called Jeanette. So at some point during this phone call, he turned around to see James had got out of the car, and he saw he was filming him, which Dominic had not agreed to. He didn't give him any permission whatsoever. So he asked him what the heck he was doing with the video camera, and James replied by saying that he just wanted Dominic to have something in his files. Dominic then came out of the wooded area he was in, and then he could see another opening, and he went in through there. He didn't go in further than 20 to 25 feet, and he says he was looking for 3 white paver stones. So I'm presuming this is what this psychic had told him to look out for. After this, he got back in the car and went on to another street where he stopped at that abandoned house, and this was after another phone call with Jeanette. So from the empty house, they went to a hotel by the airport to pick up someone to bring them over to the meet and greet, which was an event that was being hosted by George and Cindy Anthony. The next day, on the 16th of November, he went back to Suburban Drive. He says he went back there to prove a psychic wrong. And obviously he took James with him again. He went to the same places and just wanted to have another look round to see if he had missed anything. He says he didn't see Kaylee's remains on those days, obviously. Dominic went back to Suburban Drive for the third time, and this time James wasn't with him, and he says this was either on the 18th or 19th of November. He didn't go in the woods, he just parked his car, got out and walked up and down the road. He wasn't looking for anything in particular, he got in his car and left. So we move on to the cross-examination. Dominic had contact with Casey between 22nd of August and the 14th of October 2008, which was the period Casey wasn't in jail. While working for George and Cindy, Dominic still had contact with Jose Baez from time to time. So we move on to the first search Dominic did on the 15th of November, which was due to the psychic's information. Dominic is asked about what Cindy's mood was during this time, and he says she was frantic, worried and traumatised, as was George. He didn't search the woods because George and Cindy told him to. He did it based on the phone call he'd had with Jeanette that morning. And he says that the searches he did weren't exhaustive searches. I mean, if he had have done it, he'd have gone further in, gone wider out. And so on the second search, on the 16th, he was on the phone to Jeanette again. When Dominic agreed to James recording the search, he agreed on the proviso that there would be no audio, which he has since learned that there is audio. And he says he completely forbid him to do that. Obviously, they didn't want to hear the phone calls and things. I mean, Dominic says today, while, going up and giving his testimony, is the first time he has learned that there is actually audio on these videos, when he specifically asked for there not to be. He'd heard rumours, but he didn't know for sure. Why you wouldn't check, I don't know. So, yeah, these two private investigators seem a little odd. Obviously, nothing major there, nothing really to contribute to evidence-wise anyway. I mean, two crazy private investigators, speaking to psychics, one trying to sell photos, one recording without permission, recording audio when he's been forbidden not to. I mean, Dominic was constantly asking the attorneys to repeat the questions. He couldn't hear them. He couldn't remember things. I mean, it was just ridiculous. So that's it for now, but I'll be back with more in another video. So until then, bye for now.